so I can see my slides a little bit, and I'm going to share my screen. Can folks see that?
Yes, I can see that.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so Victoria asked if I would join you tonight just to talk about job search tips and resources. I work with co-op students. I know some of you have done co-ops or are hoping to do co-ops. I see that Veer is here, who I've worked with. Hi, Veer. And, you know, maybe others that are hoping to co-op in the future. But really what I have to talk about is pretty general to any kind of job search right now, particularly in the United States, but even not limited to that. So I hope that it provides some tips for you and gives you some resources that you might not have thought about before. So first off, I just want to clarify a few things. For grad students, the co-op process is a little bit different than undergrads. So those of you looking to co-op, obviously you're only here for a couple years, whereas our undergrads are here for 4 years. So our grad students, when they do co-ops, they do only one, and you have to be approved. There's a whole approval process. You have to be approved before you can start searching, and that includes for the summer. So I know that there's a whole application process. So you should definitely, if you are eligible, you'll be getting emails from our office. And what you need to be eligible is to have taken our co-op class. The grad level class is ENCP 6100. If you happen to take it as an undergrad, then you don't have to take it again. That qualifies you. You have to have a GPA of 3.0. And you have to have a TEFLA score. I forget exactly what it is. I haven't worked with as many grad students recently, but you have to meet those requirements. And then you have to submit your request to be on co-op or to go on a co-op search. And as I said, if you are eligible, if you meet those other requirements, you will get an email from our office. Oh, and I guess I should also say you have to have been at Northeastern for 1 semester. And taken the class. So you can search in your second semester that you're here, preparing for the co-op the following semester. So by the time you start co-op, you have to have completed 2 semesters worth of classes at Northeastern. So when you look for jobs, we are using a new platform called NU Works now. We changed over to that starting for this present spring search. And you don't have to be approved for co-op to be able to go in NU Works. You should all have access to that now. And NU Works is primarily used for co-op, but there are also full-time jobs posted there. There are internships posted there as well. What you want to just be mindful of is to apply to only those jobs that you are eligible for. So some companies are looking for grad students, some are not. I don't think you would even actually be able to apply if you're not eligible, but just be also mindful about the ones that mention that they require US citizenship. So if they say they require US citizenship, they will not consider you. So just try to look for the ones that do not. Generally, if they're open to grad students, they do not require US citizenship because we are aware that so many of our grad students are not US citizens. You'll also want to read the job descriptions really carefully and make sure that the job aligns with your degree and your coursework. If you're an international student, you will need to apply for CPT, a curricular practical training, in order to go on this work experience, whether it's co-op, an internship, a full-time job. And when the OGS office and approves that, they have to make sure that the job that you are using CPT for does align with your major. So it may not always be obvious, right? So you might just say, oh yeah, this company I know uses ops research students, but maybe the job is for a mechanical engineer or something. So that would not be an appropriate job for you. It has to be definitely lined up with your coursework and your major. If you are searching for co-op, we highly recommend that you look not in NU Works alone, but also look to self-develop. And I'm going to spend a lot of time tonight talking about that process of self-developing jobs. We did get approval recently for remote jobs for non-US citizens and grad students. They have been approved through the fall. So if you are going to be approved to search for the fall term, remote jobs might also be a possibility for you. If you have any questions about co-op as a grad student, this is the email that I would direct you to, miegradcoop@northeastern.edu. Victoria, maybe you could put that in the chat for folks if you don't mind.
Sure.
And yeah, and that is checked a couple times a week by a couple different people in our office. And yeah, just be patient when you send in your email, they will get back to you. Okay. All right. So what can you do in the meantime if you're kind of waiting to be approved for co-op, or just, you know, as you're gearing up for your job search? Upskilling is really something to be thinking about. So are there skills relevant to your field of interest that you may still need? And part of this, of course, will be you will want to think about this when you're sorting out what courses you want to take, right? And, you know, some of these skills might be skills that you can learn in your courses. Oops. Some of them, it might be helpful to try to expand on what you learn in your courses. I know that INFORMS often has courses in Python, for example, to help you enrich the skills that you may already have or improve on them. But yeah, these are just some of the types of skills that might be helpful for ops research students. And when you start looking at job descriptions, you'll also get a sense for what they're looking for, you know, for the jobs that interest you. So just be thinking about that. And other ways that you might be able to gain skills are through meetups. There's hackathons. I know INFORMS, I think you guys still sponsor a hackathon every year. Is that right, Victoria?
No, I think that's the data analytics organization.
Okay.
No,
I feel
yeah.
like we had one last year, but maybe I'm wrong about that. But look out for those. I know there's one out there now that's a health-related hackathon. Oops, that's so weird. I didn't touch anything. A health-related hackathon. So, oh yeah. So just be on the lookout for those. And then also LinkedIn Learning is a great site to go for different resources. Okay, so other resources, I strongly recommend you look at events in NU Works, and you'll see their career fairs. We had a career fair that happened earlier this month, so that's passed for this cycle, but there'll be one again in the fall. And then there's a lot of workshops. So this is just a few that I just happened to see that are coming up now. So February 25th, that's just in 2 days on Thursday. There's an International Student Job and Internship Search Strategies workshop. There's networking and informational interviewing, and we're going to be talking a lot about these two things today. Revising your resume, promoting your professional brand on LinkedIn to help you get, you know, refine your LinkedIn presence. Grad International Women Designing Your Life Coach Lab. So there's so many things, and that's just coming up in the next week. So there's stuff happening all the time. Our career design office is really awesome, and they'll be available to you forever, right? So it doesn't just go away after you graduate. You can take advantage of their resources throughout your careers. Other resources, the MIE group, there's a few of us who run a Husky speaking club, and you may get notifications about that. And this is just a chance for people to practice conversational English, which can be an issue, you know, for some folks who didn't grow up in the US. You don't want your English ability to kind of get in the way of your interviews. So this is a way just to practice speaking. And then in terms of conversation as well, the Global Student Success International Tutoring Center and the Writing Center also have programming for students to practice their English, edit resumes, things like that. Toastmasters is another similar kind of organization. And then, of course, if you are approved for co-op, you will be working with a co-op coordinator who will also provide resources for you. So in terms of finding a job, so there is NU Works that will be available. And again, it's available for full-time positions and internships, and will be available for co-ops if you are approved. But even beyond NU Works, we're recommending that students look for other opportunities. So some of the advantages are, first of all, it'll just expand on the opportunities. Because we don't obviously have working relationships with every company out there, although we have a lot. Some of you might consider working in your home country, and there may not be as many postings on NU Works as you know, to find something that would be interesting to you. And you know, it helps you kind of shape your own position, right? So you can really try to find something that's really exactly what you're hoping to have. And then also expanding your network. Oops. Okay, so obviously we are also in the middle of a pandemic, and that is definitely impacting the job market, right? So you probably have friends who have been searching for co-ops, things like that, and it's been a little tougher recently. So that's another reason to self-develop, just to expand on the opportunities out there. But also thinking about strategizing around the pandemic. So what industries are stronger right now, right? Healthcare is strong, logistics, supply chain, manufacturing. You can look at the stock market as well to kind of see what's happening with different companies. And I would say just being flexible right now, being very patient, and networking, again, is going to be extremely important now, more than ever. So in terms of figuring out how to start with self-developing a job or a co-op, you want to get informed, right? So you want to learn more about the field and interest. And you can do that by reading articles, searching for trends in growing industries, industries that interest you, joining groups and finding connections, figuring out where, you know, what's growing, and then being strategic. So how do you find these connections? This is just a couple groups that you may already be involved in, INFORMS and IFORS, the International Federation of Operational Research Societies. So, you know, these groups have newsletters, they have webinars, and INFORMS has an annual conference. So these are different ways that you can make connections with other people who have similar skills and interests. And these are some other ways as well. These are local and national websites that you can subscribe to. And I found some of these just by Google searching. You can sign up for their weekly emails and read their articles. Often they highlight companies in the news or sometimes funding that they have received. Datanami has top stories and sector-specific links in their online newsletter and a list of solution providers, which could be, you know, potential job leads. You can check those leads out further on LinkedIn, and then, you know, you can tell them, oh, I read the article about you on Datanami, for example, and, you know, wanted to learn more and wanted to reach out. So yeah, so American, you know, they have, they get information sourced from all these different major cities and areas. And yeah, so these are just a sampling of some of those types of publications that you can get. So other ways to develop connections, or how can these organizations help you develop connections? So this is an example from, I had done this not so specifically related to ops research, but looking at the AIA website, a different organization. it led me to different articles about different companies. And this was one article that I had found, which was pretty cool because it was talking about AIA, or Aerospace Industries Association, announcing the launch of a new platform to connect ventilator companies with component suppliers to help quickly scale production and distribution of these vital services. So obviously this was hot off the press related to COVID, right? Oops. The new platform was developed by the American Medical Technology Association and other industry alliances and partners. They represent more than 300 high-tech manufacturers and suppliers of all sizes across a range of sectors. So AdvaMed is the world's largest medical technology association, representing more than 400 companies. And in addition to the AIA members, more than 50 companies such as Stanley Black & Decker and Aero Electronics are all connected to this new association. So I went to these different websites, AdvaMed website and AIA Aerospace membership websites, and I found literally hundreds of companies that were affiliated with these organizations. So then that just sort of leads to an ongoing search, right? Then I can look up those companies and see if there's any connections I can make through LinkedIn, see if they have any jobs posted, see if they're in any works. And so this just this one article led me to a vast array of possibilities for potential jobs. So that's just kind of to sort of show you how you could kind of map out that job development. And then I noticed INFORMS is having an annual meeting in October. They're saying it's going to be in Anaheim, California. Victoria, I don't know if students from Northeastern ever attend these. Do you know about that?
I think so. For IISE, the IISE conference, they typically have, or even INFORMS, they have a reduced pricing for students, and sometimes students are able to get funding to go for that. So
okay, nice. So this is an awesome opportunity, right? They say right here, I just pulled this off the website today, unique opportunity to connect and network with the more than 7,000 INFORMS members, students, prospective employers and employees, and academic and industry experts, right? So huge networking opportunities. And even if you can't go to these, often on the websites, they will list which employers are participating. So you can just, again, take that information, look them up online, see if there's some LinkedIn connections, and, take it from there. So other approach for finding jobs is just by using Google Maps. So let's say you're interested in, working in Chicago, for example. Maybe you have family there, or, you've heard good things about it, or you've heard that there are some jobs there. So you can just use Google Maps, pop up Chicago, and then add industry profiles. So put in some keywords, right? So maybe Chicago, Illinois supply chain companies, just for an example, right? And then doing that popped up these different companies, and they show where they're located on the map. Okay, so then you find the name of a company. In this case, there was a company called Grainger, Business Supplies and Equipment. Okay, and then you look them up on LinkedIn. In this case, they noted that there are 7 people from your school, Northeastern, right, with connections to Grainger. And there's a total of over 16,000 employees who work at Grainger. So this is a big company, right? So this leads me to finding the current or former employees. So here's just a list of some of them. Oops, sorry. And so from then you can connect, message. So if you're not already connected, you can still send a 300 digit 300 word or digit count message to them in LinkedIn. That's not very long, but it's long enough to sort of introduce yourself and then see if they respond, right? So finding alumni using LinkedIn, this is another way to just, starting with alumni and see where they are and if there are maybe some connections that you can find that way. If you go to the Northeastern University LinkedIn page, click on alumni to see where they're working. So here's the Northeastern alumni page. I can go to alumni, and then from there I can see where they live. Look how many there are, first of all, over 200,000 Northeastern alumni. These are all your future best friends, right? You can see where they live, where they work, what they do, what they studied. And you can find, specifics, more specifics. More specific people, right? And then you can connect. You can ask to connect. And then what do you do when you connect, right? Here's a sample message. You found somebody named Aditya. Dear Aditya, I'm a Northeastern Operations Research student and see that you are also an alumnus. I'd be excited to hear more about your work at Company X. If you have 20 to 30 minutes to spare in the near future, I'd love to hear about, your career path and the skills that are most relevant in the field. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks, Mai Chen. Okay, and there's a link here as well with additional samples of messages that you could send. But that's just a short message. Again, has to be less than 300 letters, but you can say a lot in 300 letters. All right, so basically you're starting by asking if they've got 20 to 30 minutes to connect, right? So notice we weren't asking for a job. We were just asking to connect, to just hear a little bit about what they do and what their path is. So that's called an informational interview. So an informational interview is just an informal conversation and that you're having with somebody to get to know each other, to learn a little bit about, right? And it's a really effective research tool and is best done after some preliminary online research. So you do a little digging first. Oops. Do a little digging first, just to learn more about the industry, learn more about that company, right? And then you ask if they have a chance or have some time to meet with you. It's not a job interview, and the objective is not to get information directly about their job openings. But it can lead to a job. You might feel awkward at first, but people are generally very receptive to this. They know that what it was like. They were once like you, trying to get a start in their careers. And especially if they're an alumnus or you have some kind of connection, that can help, encourage them to take that time. And anyway, people like to talk about themselves, right? It can be very flattering to have somebody reach out to you and say, I see that you are, in this position. It looks really interesting. I'd really like to hear more about it. So you'd be surprised how receptive people can be. So how do you prepare for this? A lot of it is really preparing for a job interview, a lot of the same types of things you would do, but this is a little different. You're going to start by learning more about the person, right, that you're interviewing, and the company and the industry. And remember, you're interviewing them as opposed to a job interview where you're kind of interviewing each other, actually, although people always think that the employer is doing all the interviewing. Really, a job interview is a two-way street. So you want to do your research, right? So when you actually have the meeting, you're kind of in charge of it, right? You'll be asking the questions. So what questions do you want to ask? So you want to know about them, right? How did you become interested in this type of work? How did you get your present job? This is a type of question you might ask. What skills or talents are most essential to be effective in this job? How did you learn these skills? Did you learn them in a course? Did you, get a certification in something? Was that important to do? Those are some of the types of questions you might ask. And then how can I learn more? But you've done your research, right? So you can say, well, I'm already, I went to the INFORMS conference and, talked to so-and-so, learned about such and such. I'm subscribed to the Datanami publication, things like that. But then are there other things that I could be doing, right? And then what special advice might you give to somebody entering the field? These are some of the organizations I'm using to do my research. What do you think about this list? Are there others that you would suggest I add? And those types of questions. So again, you want to come in informed so that you're not wasting their time. So then networking. So just reviewing, right? So networking is making connections on LinkedIn or through networking events. And how can you do that? You can send LinkedIn messages or email people introducing yourself. You can ask for an informational interview. And then once you've started with a dialogue, eventually you can ask if their office hires co-ops or if there are full-time positions available. You might ask to send your resume for review for them to consider in the future. And then ask for introduction to other connections. Is there someone else that you suggest that I connect with? And would you be willing to make an introduction or give me their contact information? So again, this is not a job request immediately, but it can lead to other connections or to other possibilities. So organizing your search, okay? Because this can be overwhelming if you're not thinking about it in an organized fashion. So you want to start by creating a list of targeted companies and people that you've reached out to. You want to make note of where, when, and how you either applied or connected with them. Was it online? Was it through a portal? Did you send an email, a link? And you want to keep track of all those things, right? You want to track the dates of your applications and any communications you had. And you want to make sure that you can find the job description again. So put a link in there, for example. And this is just an example of a spreadsheet that you might consider making. You can do it as a Google Doc as well, but just something to keep you organized, right? So maybe the name of the organization, if it was a job in particular, what's the job title? Where is it? How did you find it? Did you apply? Do you have a contact? Status, links to the jobs, right? But maybe other columns as well, like connection made on such and such a date or last connection. Those are just some other examples. Some way to organize yourself. And in terms of co-op, for those of you who are looking for co-op and looking for new opportunities, you will have your co-op coordinator who would also have some other supporting documents for you to present to employers to sort of introduce the co-op program. But generally pitching Northeastern, you can talk about any activities that you've had. You can talk about your classes. You talk about how you will have taken a co-op prep class. So just basically kind of selling up the Northeastern co-op and then your program in particular. And then again, if you're working with a co-op coordinator, we would need to vet the job for you before you would accept it. So we would also be talking with them and helping you explain to them what co-op is. So how do you know what a good company looks like? So you want a position that's going to give you real hands-on experience, again, that matches your major and your area of interest. You want something that's going to help you develop your skills and provide a learning opportunity. Even with co-ops, ideally paid. There are a few co-ops, that are not paid, but those are very few and far between, and we work very hard with employers to make sure that you are paid whenever possible. You want to have mentorship, a supervisor who's going to be supportive, where you can learn. And then in terms of co-op, there are certain parameters that we have to work around. We have to work with the registrar to make sure that you're working for a long enough amount of time so that it falls, you have to work a certain number of days for it to be considered a full-time experience for that term. So when you're on co-op, you maintain your full-time student status. So there are parameters with the registrar that have to be met. So you might think, okay, Chicago sounds really cool. I don't have any family there. Where would I live? How would I do all that? There is support at Northeastern through the off-campus housing and support services. There's a link here to them, and they can help students with relocation, thinking about transportation. In some of the major cities, there's also co-op connections where there's students, you know, who there's opportunities to get together with students who are on co-op there, Facebook connections, meetups, other things like that. And a lot of companies, especially for co-op, they know that students are coming from a distance. So some of the bigger companies will actually provide housing or provide leads to reasonable housing that's near the locations. So just kind of to summarize some steps that you can take now to sort of pave the way for a job. So identifying local companies in your industry, searching keywords on Google Maps, then researching the companies on LinkedIn. There's also job boards like Indeed, LinkedIn, Glassdoor. Google has a job search engine now too that I understand from students is really good. There are two organizations I just want to highlight that have funding from the state of Massachusetts for internships, but those can also become co-ops in many cases. So one is the Mass Life Sciences Internship Challenge. If you just look up Mass Life Sciences, I think you would come to it. And then there's Mass Clean Energy Internship Program. That's Mass CEC, for those of you interested in energy-related opportunities. And the way those work is you apply to those sites. You apply to those sites, and there's the industries that are the employers that work with them then have access to your resume, and they review them and contact you if they're interested. So let's see what else. Reading industry newsletters, professional association publications, and then networking. That's really big, right? And polishing your LinkedIn profile. Portfolio can be helpful in some situations, and your resume. So if you are gearing up to take the co-op class, you'll be working on LinkedIn and your resume, certainly in the co-op class. If you're just looking for a full-time opportunities after you graduate, you can work with the Career Design Office, and they will also be very happy to help you with those. And again, there's workshops in these different areas as well. Okay, so that's it for me. Are there questions? I know that was a lot of information.
Thank you so much, Robin.
Of course, Victoria.
Yeah, one of the things that yesterday, interesting enough, I was at an event, and one of the things that they hammered was this whole process of networking, which is very uncomfortable.
Yes.
For a lot of people. And,
yes.
The person just kept on saying, well, you have to kind of what you explained, actually, verbatim, going online on LinkedIn specifically, looking, filtering by the companies that you're interested in, and, messaging them saying, hi, I just want, 15 to 20 minutes to hear about your work and stuff. So, there are a lot of people that said that led to some form of job for them. So it's very daunting.
It can be really scary. It can be really scary. And yeah, that's why I tried to tell you, people will respond much of the time, not always, right? And job searches are hard. There's a lot of disappointment, there's a lot of rejection. So you really have to go into it. We talk about growth mindset a lot in the co-op class. You really have to go into it with a growth mindset, and just stay with it, and just keep pushing through. And it is one of those things where one little connection can lead you to the next connection, can lead you to the next connection, and you don't have any idea when you start out what that path is going to look like for you. But yeah, just trying to just start, right? I think the hardest thing is starting for a lot of people. So once you send your first message, then it's like, okay, that wasn't so bad. I kind of got this, and let me just send another one. And then, hopefully you hear back, right? If you don't hear back in a week, email or link them again. Send them another message, because they may have missed it. You might have just caught them at a bad time. When you don't hear, it doesn't mean you're just rejected, The really tricky part with job searches is to not take it all personally. And it takes a lot. It takes a lot. We had a student guest speaker in our Intro to Co-op class for undergrads today, and he self-developed his third co-op. Our undergrads tend to do 2 or 3 co-ops. And he said that he had 10 to 15 informational interviews while he was doing this. And he applied to, like 80 jobs, and only heard back from maybe 10. So it's a big process. It's not like it just happens overnight. But you learn a lot by doing it. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn about the field. And, just like everything else, this student presenting today was so polished, and he did not start that way. He said the same thing. He said he was scared to death to send his first message. But then it just becomes something that you do, right? Just like, the courses that you're taking, right? Seem really daunting at first, and then you become expert at it. So it's like everything else. Yeah, but that's definitely a good point. Yeah. Other questions?
Hi, Robin. I had a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Hi. Hi. So I have joined in the spring semester this year.
Okay.
And I wanted to know what would be a good timeline to start connecting and start looking for jobs and applying, and when should be the good time to start the co-op, just getting a sense of how the timeline
Yeah.
would be like.
Of course. Yep. So if you started in January, Pratik, you could take the co-op class in the fall. So we don't offer it in the summer. We offer it in the spring and the fall. So the class is called Intro to Co-op, I believe, but it's 6100. ENCP 6100. Yeah, so I would definitely suggest that you take it in the fall. And what's nice about that is that after you finish that class, you'll have had your 2 semesters of coursework. So you can actually start your search while you're in the class, which I think is ideal, because you're learning, the class is kind of structured so that we teach you things in the order that you need them for the search. So then you'll learn all about the application process to request to go on co-op, all of that. And you'll have the support of your instructor while you're gearing up to be approved to search. So yeah, I would definitely suggest that you register for that class in the fall.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Other questions?
Hi, Robin.
Hi, Shreyas.
I have a follow-up question to the one we just answered to Pratik. After taking the ENCP course in fall, by when can we expect to land up in a co-op? I mean, will it be in the next spring or in the next summer?
That's a really good question. So, so you would, if you meet the qualifications, right, for eligibility, which I spoke about before, you would likely be approved to search in the spring. Or sorry, let's see, if you take it in the fall, you'd be approved to search for the following spring, right? So our spring cycle begins in January, right? Now, so you'd be able to search during the fall term for January. But it comes up really fast, right? Because you start taking the class in September and the jobs start in January typically. So not every student is going to be successful in their first search. But if you're not successful in the first search and you still have courses left to complete, which you likely would if you're only going into your second semester, you could request to roll over for the next cycle. So it's not uncommon for us to have students who, for example, take the class in the fall, search for the spring, but they're not successful in the spring, but they get permission to continue searching for the fall. And those fall jobs you might start in the summer, or you probably would start in the summer. And some of them even want you to start earlier than July. So the normal, so we have two basic co-op cycles. They run from January through June and then July through December. But grad students have a lot of wiggle room with that. So if you got a job that starts in May and goes through December, that's fine. Or if your job doesn't start until September, that is also fine. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Robin.
Yeah, what is not okay is to have a job in the fall and the spring, because those are two, academic terms, and you can't be in co-op across two consecutive terms like that. The summer's a little different because it's not a requirement to be in class in the summer. Yeah, so I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, it was. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Ma'am, hi Robin. I am
Hi,
Parth Khamar. Yeah, ma'am, I have started spring semester. I have started in spring 2021, and
Okay.
I have taken 2 courses. So it's 8 credit right now. I am planning to take 1 course in summer, and
Okay.
then eventually I would have to take ENCP and 2 courses in fall. So I am asking if I am unable to secure a co-op in first try that you mentioned earlier. Like what would be like I am left with only 12 credits after that. So
Right.
what are the scenario to go ahead
Yes,
with this
and
one?
thank you for bringing up that point. So you cannot go on co-op in your last term. So, and you cannot take a class, you cannot finish your education at Northeastern while you're on co-op. So you have to be a little bit careful not to take too many classes before you've done your co-op, so that you still leave yourself that opportunity to do a co-op.
Okay, so in last semester, before last semester, if I take if my 12 credits are left, so my 3 subjects are left. So is it okay to go with 1 course in summer and 2 courses in fall? So total my 5 courses would be completed with 20 credits and 12 credits would be left. So that one is okay, right?
So long as you have credits left
Okay.
to go on co-op, right? Even if you have one class left after you finish your co-op, that's okay. But you can't have no classes left after you finish your co-op.
But isn't it that so like in spring and fall we cannot drop more than like we have to take 2 class at least if you are
You
not
don't have to. If it's your last semester, you can take just one class.
Okay, thank you.
Well, you should check with OGS on that, right? You should check with OGS and with grad student services. Often what will happen is students will finish in the summer after co-op. Yeah, I mean, I think it's okay for you to take one class in the spring, because you're saying if you searched in the fall and didn't get a co-op and then rolled over to the spring cycle, then yeah, finishing up in the summer is definitely no problem after co-op, right? So let's say you have your co-op January through June, and then you take your last class in July and August. That's fine. But you should meet with grad student services just to kind of map out the courses that you want, first of all, and figure out when they're offered so that you plan it all out, and then figure out what your options are if you get a co-op in the 2 different terms.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, you're welcome. Mhm. Any other questions?
No, feel free to ask. I feel like you have to give people a minute.
We've had really good questions up to now.
That is correct.
Things I should have mentioned that I forgot, so I'm glad that you're asking and not being shy. So let's see, were you able to put the grad student email address? Yes, you did. So Victoria did put the MIE grad co-op email address in the chat. So if questions come up that you didn't think of, you can always send them there.
Great. Well, if there are no more questions, thank you everyone for coming. And thank you, Robin, as well for
My pleasure.
speaking with us. We really do appreciate the time that you spent. And this was very insightful. You gave some great tips. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.